in America as a whole, I mean, the obesity epidemic is running rampant. People have diabetes more so than not. It's kind of an abysmal, bleak outlook because everybody seemingly has this information, but they're not leveraging it.
Often it's really just some simple changes that could make the biggest difference in their lives. Then they never have to go through any suffering or pain or discomfort. It's tough, when they go from standard diet to, keto or carnivore or it's a big deal because they've never been there before. Often people just need kind of some information and a reason to do it, a really good why, and then the belief that they can do it and they make change.
What is the conference scene like in Australia for nutrition? Is there much talk of ketogenic, low-carb, carnivore nutrition there, or is that kind of not so much the case?
Yeah, so I've actually been running health, wellness, kind of lifestyle style retreats, retreats and events in Adelaide, where I am, for about 10 years. And I noticed what was going on in the US. I saw back when I first was aware of what was happening in the US, especially in the keto carnivore space, it was KetoCon, I think, from memory. And now it's, I think, turned to Hack Your Health. And there are some big kind of health and fitness events, but not focused on the keto and carnivore space. And so, last year I decided to ask a few people from around the world if they would come and be involved in an event that was purely carnivore focused. And they all said yes, including, Dr. Anthony Chafee, Bella, and Adam and Kerry from Healing Humanity. And so, I held this event where we had, 350 people the first time. I didn't know in Australia if we had, carnivores or ketovores or I didn't know. I just thought, let's just put it out there and see what happens. And then people just flew in from all over the place to be there. It was amazing. So, I actually held another one this year in April in Melbourne, Australia. And then, I actually had an event last night also. And we're getting great crowds because people are starting to really wake up to these ways of living, eating.
It's funny when I first got into the space and I was putting out content and was like invited to speak at these conferences, I remember Dr. Barry and I, we would take an Uber to a restaurant or something afterwards and just chit chat. And his test was always to ask the Uber driver if they had ever heard of keto or if they knew what keto was. And then in the very beginning, nobody knew what it was. It was like this unknown thing. Maybe they'd heard about it. Mm-hmm. But now in the States, at least, it's like everybody knows what keto is. They may not know how to do it or the ins and outs of it, but it's like they either know what it is or know someone that's doing it. They're all kind of it's in their vocabulary now. Does it seem that way in Australia? Like everybody knows kind of roughly what it is?
Yeah, I think keto has definitely taken that turn. Keto is way more well known. Mm-hmm. Carnivore too is really starting to creep into people's understanding, because if you ask someone or you tell someone you're involved in that community, they kind of say, I know somebody who's doing that, or I know my cousin did that, or, they're aware of it. Keto a lot more. Yeah.
Good. What is the general population in Australia like compared to the U.S.? I mean, I guess you were at the conference here in the U.S. It's probably a little bit of an echo chamber there with the population, but in America as a whole, I mean, the obesity epidemic is running rampant. People have diabetes more so than not. It's kind of an abysmal, bleak outlook because everybody seemingly has this information, but they're not leveraging it. Some certainly are, but there's a lot of unhealth in the States. Is it the same in Australia, or does it seem like that's a relatively fit and healthy community for the most part?
I think it's very similar to the States. I mean, you do have your communities and the people who are health conscious and aware, but we have a big obesity problem here also, sickness, disease. The standard American diet, standard Australian diet, very similar. And so for me, I'm very passionate about, because I had my own health issues that kind of put me on this journey. And I just don't want people to have to get to a point where they have to make change. I mean, great if they get to a point where they know they have to make some changes and they do it. But we really want to get people thinking about this and making changes before they get there, to try and really prevent them experiencing, sickness and disease. Because often it's really just some simple changes that could make the biggest difference in their lives. And then they never have to go through, any suffering or pain or discomfort of having to not only really face something from a health perspective, but also the experience of changing patterns and belief and, just ways of living and eating. It's tough, when they go from standard diet to, keto or carnivore, or like it's a big deal because they've never been there before. And often people just need kind of some information and a reason to do it, a really good why, and then the belief that they can do it and they make change. But often it takes something for that to happen, which is a real shame. I would really like to see more people consider how, what their health status really is at any point and make the change that they need. So I think it's really, look, Australia is a really fit and healthy country, in terms of we've got sunshine and coastline and, people are in certain areas are utilising that to the best of their ability. But we're like you guys. We really need to take a good hard look at ourselves and make changes where necessary, because otherwise become a real problem. Well, it is a real problem. I think our statistics on obesity would be very similar to yours over there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I feel like a lot of people adopt carnivore specifically because it is so restrictive and they've got some type of underlying, PCOS or mold issue or something like that they're trying to remediate, and they'll turn to carnivore to just an elimination diet style approach. But then in doing so, they're kind of woken up to how much better they feel and health and performance and the significance of quality nutrition. But it's unfortunate it takes something as profound as a health concern or scare like that to get them motivated to do so. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I wish people would just proactively eat this way because it's simply the right way for human beings to eat, as opposed to a last ditch effort to try and stay alive for longer.
100% agree. 100% agree. At my worst, and I was 26 at the time, I had a heap of unrelated health issues. I really was not conscious about what I was eating and how I was living, my lifestyle choices. And I ignored all these signs that my body was really having some problems. You would think when you have unresolved health, so unrelated health issues, that would be a problem with your body, but I wasn't aware because I just back then wasn't taking much notice. And one day I was at work and I worked in a corporate job in a concrete building, fluoro lights, and my left ear starts ringing really loud, and I pretty much lost my silence in an instant. So I had tinnitus, which is in Australia we call it tinnitus, and it's a ringing in the ear. They say never goes away. I had vertigo. I was very upset about it because I enjoyed my silence. Didn't have kids then, so I had to go on a bit of a journey to see, well, what's happening inside me? Why has this happened? And when I really looked into it, I realized that I'd been fueling my body with the wrong food, and that had caused a huge disruption to my system. And that was just the start of a journey of taking care of myself. At 26.
What was the official diagnosis for that ailment?
Well, they say, well, you've got tinnitus, a ringing in the ear that will never go away. So here's a script for, blood thinners and steroid nasal sprays, and there's nothing that can be done for you. So that's the official diagnosis and what I was told. And so I just decided not to do that and just say, well, if I've caused this, something I'm doing is causing this. And so when I did some other kinds of testing, I found that I had chronic candida and leaky gut and parasites in the gut. It was all gut related for me. Excessive sugars in the body. My insides were just really unhealthy, and so I at that time I went paleo, because that was the first step for me back then. Made a huge difference. It pretty much turned everything around, including the ear ringing. Now I know the kinds of things that will elevate it, and I just steer clear of them. And now doing carnivore just takes it to a whole nother level. After paleo, I went keto a few years later, and then from keto to carnivore. And I haven't looked back really. And in my 40s, early 40s, I am now. I would say my health is way better than it was in my 20s and 30s. Yeah.
That's always a good thing when you're reversing Father Time. You're getting better with each year that passes as opposed to worse.
100%. I don't even think I say I'm in my 40s, but I just don't feel it at all. So, yeah, I don't really relate to my age at all.
Yeah. Were you living were you fit and active and like exercising and things like that through your 20s as well?
Nope. No, I wasn't. In fact, I only hit the gym again in my recent kind of transformation, which was 2021. So before that, I may have been doing a bit of walking and hiking, but I was only reintroduced to the gym and started weight training in 21. And that also, with the diet, changed everything. Yeah.
So you've been eating much better animal-based paleo for about 15 years now, 16 years, and then just recently started doing the weight training. So that's kind of like a whole nother dimension to it. I mean, like people can see profound benefit with the nutrition dialed in, but like you're totally leaving half of it on the table if you don't also incorporate the right type of training.
100%. So, in 21, so I just before then, I kind of went off the wagon for a little while. I'd had 2 kids. I went through quite a stressful time with a divorce, and it was really tough, and I was not taking care of myself. So I probably had about 2 or 3 years in between there where I just went off, and I put on a lot of weight. I was very stressed out. Wasn't putting myself first. My kids were really young at the time. And so, when I found a coach that actually helped put me on keto, and then I kind of, when I met him, already started to lose a bit of weight in the only way I knew, which was, from a paleo approach. But then I met him, put me on keto, and then I started training 3 days a week with weights. And then I learned everything I needed to know about training, and that just changed my life. Yeah, totally changed my life. In 3 months, my body was already transformed. Like you could. I've got an amazing kind of monthly photo that I took in those first 3-4 months, and the way my body changed with weight, I'd never ever had happened to me before. And from then on, I actually, like a year later, I did a bodybuilding bikini category competition. And got sick about 6 weeks out, and was out of training for about 2 weeks. And as you know, that's really hard to stop comp prep with not long to go. So my coach then said, "Oh, you should probably try carnivore for the last 4 weeks and just push yourself and your body to the limit." And I did, and it made a huge difference to how I was looking, and then it was how I was feeling that I really noticed that, gosh, carnivore for me, actually, I love, and I'm really happy to stay here. So I've been predominantly carnivore since. That was 22. And if I'm ever going to kind of not be carnivore, be more ketovore. So mostly high protein with maybe a little bit of something else in the keto space as well.
Yep.
So, I've only been training since 21. And you can't live without it.
It's crazy how much training can change the body, especially like for someone that is not trained already. Like if you don't have the muscle maturity and you introduce that stimulus, I mean, it makes a night and day difference. I mean, like the best 6 months I had was the first 6 months I started training, and like
Yeah.
your before and after pictures are night and day,
Mm.
and you were already getting your nutrition pretty well dialed in prior to that point. So it's like that training was the real catalyst there.
Yeah, the training. Look, I often say to people, especially if they're doing carnivore, and keto, because, you can also drop a heap of body fat, doing keto and carnivore. But I actually had a man last night at my event. He'd lost 25 kilos since February this year on carnivore, an older man. But I could see he was lost a bit of muscle and he was starting to look like, I said to him, "We really got to start building some muscle because you keep losing that weight and, you know, aesthetically it doesn't look that great." And then, muscle is so important for our health and our strength as we age. So yeah, I wouldn't stop it because of how it makes me feel. And, I had young kids, and I remember when my kids were young, they just turned 10 and 12. When they were young, I was so unfit and not strong, and I couldn't run after them, couldn't go upstairs, just didn't feel like the way I feel now. Now I can do anything with them, and I'm fine.
I don't know why it is because like I'll go to all these conferences and I'm assuming it's probably the same in Australia, but like the majority of the people there are there for the nutritional information. They've totally bought into it. They've made the shift. They're feeling better. They're reversing whatever ailment they have. But it seems as though the vast majority of the people that are attending these conferences are not actually working out. Like they're oftentimes older demographic, but it's very obvious that they just don't really train. And I don't know what the messaging needs to change to really get them motivated to take that step. Because it seems like no matter what conference I go to, it's always a focus on nutrition, which is super, super important. But there's like this hesitation, and maybe it is because it's that older demographic primarily, but there's this massive hesitation to actually get in the gym and pair that with the nutritional changes they're making.
Yeah, because I do a bit of coaching, and I base my work on movement, so training, movement, metabolism, mindset. And I think they're all just as important. And from my experience personally and with others, they're all just as important. You could have the nutrition dialed in and not be moving correctly or enough, or doing not doing weights, and it matters, if you're not doing that, like it matters that you are. And same with mindset. You could be doing all the right things and then have a stressor in your life. When I speak to people who seem to be doing all the right things and then they've got a stressor, and it doesn't have to be external, it could be internal. It could be some kind of internal chaos that's got your body all out of whack. And yeah, your body won't. Well, I could say that from my own experience, that I was doing all the right things at a certain period and nothing was changing until I had to make some changes in my life. And then my stress levels lowered and my body was a lot more peace internally. And then all of a sudden I just started dropping the body fat, and my body started reacting to the weight training, and I've changed. So I think it's a combination. So I think you're exactly right about there needing to be more of, you know, we need to have more discussion about movement as well as nutrition at these events. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like people always want to, tease out percentages, like 70% diet, 30% training, or 50%, 50%. It's like, no, you got to do 100% of each because
Yes.
they all matter. Like you can't shirk one or the other. Like you're going to level up in life as an individual when you give both of them, and mindset too, the
Yes.
attention it deserves. Cause like I like that you bring all three together because the mindset is huge as well. I mean, I work with clients and they could have their macros dialed in, they could be on top of their training, but if they're just in a negative mindset, everything's skewed as well.
Well, I know how, because I see it, consistency like, and there are people that want to say jump straight to carnivore, and sometimes I'm not sure if that's the best thing for them if they're coming straight from standard diet. But I firstly want to see somebody being consistent for a certain period, so I know that they're getting the best results, they're giving their all, and I know that they can do it. And consistency comes from mindset. Like you could give somebody the roadmap, to what exactly what they need to do. But if their mindset is off, they're just not going to do it. They're going to either find reasons not to, or their willpower is lacking slightly, or their why isn't strong enough for them to stick to it. So they stay on it and then they get off, and they get on it and they get off. So we need to strengthen their mindset just as much as we need to strengthen their muscles and their body, and then they have to be eating right. So great. It's just a great combination. If people could understand that a little bit more, I think we would see, the results or the health of people, their well-being just increase and get so much better. Yeah. These are my focuses. This is what I'm basing this off my own life, really. And that's what I do. Yeah.
So if you got all your stuff dialed in, your nutrition, your training, your mindset dialed in your early 40s, after you'd already had 2 kids, like what is your underlying why? Like what is your reason for doing it all every day?
Well, I'll often say when you're in kind of optimal health and you're thriving and you see and feel the world differently, and your body is a really great vehicle for you to live in. It's like driving a Ferrari and then choosing to go back and drive a Toyota Corolla, say. I would never choose to do that. I don't think anybody would if they were given a Ferrari to drive in for the rest of their life. And I just realize what my choices can do for me, and I just would never go back. I think when you really feel that, so you get to a point where you've dropped a good amount of body fat, you've redefined your body, you can see and feel and experience life differently. Your mental clarity, mental fog is gone, and you're grateful every day, and you're cultivating your own happiness and joy, from within. Life then begins to flow in a way that, you come into alignment with how we're really meant to be living. And I would never choose anything other than that. So if my choices of what I'm doing every day, every week, it contributes to that, then that's enough of a why for me to say, well, I choose to live like this and I wouldn't choose it any other way. I wouldn't make it any other way. So, yeah, it's just longevity, I guess, and how we live life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like, I've done all the other diets out there as well. And like, I feel the best with keto. And it's like, I know how much better my performance is. And once you know the difference, it's like you have no desire to go back.
Yeah.
And that fuels the decision making throughout the day to day, which compound over a lifetime. And I
Yeah.
feel like a big problem is, I think we all inherently know that we've only got one body. Like nobody's naive to that fact. But I think so many people never feel what feeling great feels like,
Yeah.
especially now that so many people are just unhealthy at such an early age.
Yeah.
These kids these days, there's like kids that are diabetic, type 2 diabetic, before they ever hit 10 years old. So single digit age and already sick and metabolically unwell. And that's all they know. Like they don't even know what feeling good is. So to get them motivated that this does not have to be their life, that's the hard part.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, this is what I say often when I tell my own story and I share it with others. It's like, I just didn't know that I could feel this good. I didn't know that I could function this well. I didn't know because I'd never been there before. And sometimes you do need somebody to remind them or to tell them and help make them believe, in that being possible for them. Somebody did that for me, and I do it for others because I didn't know either. I've only been to a certain point, a certain level, and I didn't know where I could get to. And it would be really a great incentive for people, and they should be excited about seeing where their choices can lead them, I think. Like,
Totally.
I would be really excited for somebody to watch them change their life like that, like I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the success stories, like they're the best. Like when I get that kind of feedback or comments or emails, it's like somebody's lost 100 pounds, or
Yeah.
they're like, you can talk to somebody, and when you see the moment that their eyes light up and they just have
Yes.
like hope and excitement again, like that is so priceless right there.
Oh, do you know what's one of the saddest things I hear, especially for women? I mean, you may hear it also with men, but women very often say when they're unhappy with how they look and feel, they hate looking at themselves in the mirror. You know, it's one of the most regular comments and feedback I hear. And how sad is that? That there's this large part of, you know, the population that don't even like looking at themselves in the mirror. You know,
Yeah.
imagine starting your day feeling like that. That
Yeah.
would only set you up for, you know, like you. And I know happiness comes from within. Okay, we'll put that out there. Happiness can be cultivated at any moment, but let's add good health, vibrancy, energy, mental clarity. Like I see colors brighter. I see the world differently. I feel it differently. You know, all of that. You know, imagine having that and looking at the mirror, really loving your life. You know, that's what people have. Everybody has access to. It's not for the select few. You know.
Yeah, totally. What is the primary demographic of clients that you're working with?
Mainly women between 40 and 60. Yeah.
So you're getting the hormonal fluctuating menopausal years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So I'm 42 in September. So I did notice some changes in myself hormonally, and I'm no expert in this area at all. I'm in fact learning a lot myself, but I know that my lifestyle choices, the food I eat, the daily practices, the movement. I've recently been playing a bit with eliminating all dairy, including butter, which was a really hard concept for me, especially in the carnivore world, because butter is a big part of big part of carnivore diet.
Mhm.
So I've just removed butter, and I'm actually more so just having fat, like animal fat butters that I'm making, and seeing how that's helping me electrolytes. Got my bottle here, like, you know, I've noticed a big difference before and after having daily electrolytes. And from a hormonal perspective, noticing some big changes, eliminating butter and dairy. I was only having really like a little bit of cream and butter every day. So that I have noticed some big changes doing that.
What do you think the issue with the butter, like lactose specifically, or what do you think it is? Like
It could
ghee? Can you
be,
handle ghee?
because you know, like, well, we can't get really can't get raw dairy here. So I don't know. I'd be very interested to see the difference would be, but I don't know. I'm no expert. I've just been advised by a few people have suggested maybe you should remove butter and see how that feels. And feeling great, actually. So I don't know. I don't know. We'd have to ask someone who's very knowledgeable in that area to answer that question. But yeah, yeah.
Well, I definitely think, the women that I've worked with, 40s through 60s, like if they've got, I mean, like the things that people worry about in their menopausal years, testosterone declining, estrogen in a flux, loss of lean tissue and skeletal, bone density. It's like so much of that can be hedged if you're eating enough total food. A lot of people are not eating enough at that age. And then the right food, ample protein, and just keeping those muscles in demand, keeping that movement pattern in check, using the muscle. Like me, if you check those boxes, that's going to do a world of good for you. And I think if people just simply did that before they turned to the HRT, and nothing against the HRT, but if they did that prior to, they may recognize that they don't need that.
Totally agree. Again, it is where I've been, focusing on, because I was worried about some changes that I was experiencing and feeling, and didn't feel like myself in certain moments of the month. And yeah, mostly carnivore. I am carnivore. Like the moment I'm eating mostly beef and tallow and lamb, and that's it. Maybe some fish. Yeah, I for the last 6 months had been not quite feeling like myself at certain times of the month. And I'm really when you eat like this, you have for a long time, you're conscious of what's happening in your body with your body. You notice changes really easily. You're very aware. You have this great relationship with your body, and if there's changes, you notice. And I was noticing, and yeah, it's a shame. I do see a lot of people around me who perhaps aren't that aware or health conscious, not on this journey at all, and they're all on HRT and um, thyroid medication or antidepressants. Very common in women in their 40s. It seems to be what's being offered for their issues, and I wanted to see if some simple changes could help me, and they really have been. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm no expert. I'm no
antidepressants
expert. I'm literally experimenting right now. I'm learning myself. Yeah,
that's the key, though. I mean, you've got to remove as many variables as you can and be able to make educated, hypotheses and experimentation.
yes,
And you can't do that if you don't know your body. And so many people don't know their body. They don't know, what they're feeling. They don't know what feeling good feels like we talked about earlier. And they just automatically reach for whatever over-the-counter drug or prescription medication they could take. But it's like I can tell a difference in my body between 10-gram increments of fat changing up or down, dietary fat. I'm really in tune with my body, but I didn't get that way overnight. And I feel like if people just simply remove the noise from the equation and just got more in tune with themselves, they would have a much clearer image of knowing where to go next. And I feel like that's where that's what we got to, that's the gap we got to bridge right now.
Well, and you would know that it's very simple for those watching. Like, what you actually need to do is very simple, but it's not always easy. It's really, really simple. I mean, keto and carnivore are very simple ways to eat, but yeah, the hard part is just changing the way you've always been. I remember when I had to go, when my ear was ringing really bad, and I was so upset. For a long time, and someone said to me, "Look, you're going to have to remove things like sugar, wheat. Back then, it was dairy, alcohol. You're going to have to look at what you're breathing in and what you're putting on your skin. You're going to really detoxify your life." I hadn't known any different because I'd lived the same way up until then, 26 years, and so when we're getting women and men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, sometimes 70s, who have to make some changes or are finally making good choices for themselves, it's hard to change what they've always known, so, I don't blame them for finding it tough, because it's a lifetime of beliefs and habits, but everything can be changed, everything, if you've got that willpower and mindset and motivation, and hopefully not a too serious why, Otherwise,
totally.
we do find that if they do have a serious why, it's, my dad, about 12, 13 years ago had bowel cancer. And I remember I'd been eating, paleo for a fair while, and I was starting to become very conscious about food, nutrition, and what it was doing to our bodies. And I remember the day he was diagnosed, he finally came to me and he said, "Right, what am I changing? What do I have to do?" And he did everything. He did everything very quickly because he had to. And then when he went in to have his surgery, the tumor was pretty much not there anymore. It was amazing. The
Mm-hmm.
doctor said, "What have you been doing?" And he pretty much stopped everything that probably caused it, and it disappeared.
That's it's interesting because we live in a world in which society does not like the notion of foods being labeled good or bad. Um, I don't think it's a bad thing to consider some food straight up poison. Like for me, in my personal mind, like if I look at ultra processed, hyper palatable fast food as poison, I'm that much less likely to consume it because I know it's not serving me. But from
Yeah.
a psychological standpoint, a lot of people take offense to that. They're like, "Oh, you got to have everything in moderation. You don't want to guilt trip people." What is your take on it? Like you with your dad specifically, having that ailment and then changing that. Like I would argue that what he was doing was as close to poison as anybody could say.
Yes, my dad would eat a lot of pasta and drink a lot of Coke and sugars, even eat a lot of sugar. So um, he loved a soft drink. So, my parents often say when they hear me doing carnivore, it's like, it's funny, Dad didn't eat a lot of red meat back then. How did he get bowel cancer? I go, probably all the sugar he was drinking, you know?
Mm.
It's funny, I'm the same with you about poison, thinking of it as poison, because my kids were joking with me the other day. And again, people often ask about kids. We really need to lead by example and, guide the kids as best we can. Don't like to tell them exactly what to do. I like to tell them why I'm doing things a certain way. But they were having a joke with me the other day about, and you guys, we call it fairy floss, but I think it's cotton candy, pink.
Yeah, cotton
Yeah.
candy.
And because we were going to the movies and they're like, can we get some fairy floss? And I said, no way, absolutely not. And they joked with me about how much money they could pay me to have a tiny bit fairy floss. And so they kept going up and up and up and up. I just kept saying, no, no. What about $1 million, Mum? Come on, $1 million for a little bit. I go, no, I wouldn't. It's not food. It's not something I need to eat at all. They thought that was hilarious. That's how strongly I just wanted to get the message across to them. It doesn't matter what I would get paid. I wouldn't eat it,
Yeah. I was teaching at a high school the other day. Like I put a bunch of high schoolers through a workout.
Yeah.
And I was doing like Q&A session with them afterwards. And that was one of the first questions one of the kids asked me. They were like, how much would you have to be paid to eat like McDonald's or something like that? And I'm like, man, I wouldn't do it because like
Yeah.
my health is my greatest currency. Like that is, I mean, I have clients that are very wealthy, but they're not healthy.
Yeah.
And they're not happy because of that. It's like, you've got this one body, this one fortress of yours that you live your life in. Like it's not worth it to me to disparage it. And I don't know. I feel like this notion that everything in moderation or it's not going to kill you. Go ahead and indulge. Go ahead and celebrate. Like that's just the wrong messaging through and through. I mean, I can go to I don't know what the festivities are like in Australia, but like Thanksgiving here in the U.S. is really big, and everybody just goes there and justifies eating junk food. But it's like the reason you go to Thanksgiving is to be grateful and thankful for the things you have in your life, the blessings in your life, the family, and the relationships that you have. And it's become this bastardized thing in which there's not really much notion towards the relationship or the conversation. It's what's food is on the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's move away from that. Sure, we can eat good food, but let's eat good food and let's focus more so on people across from us and engage with them. Like that's where the true blessing is. So yeah, I've got a problem with society's messaging with a lot of things for sure.
Absolutely. I was with somebody recently in a cafe, and he'd recently been through a separation, and we were talking about how he was feeling about it. And then we got to talking a bit about coping mechanisms, like coping tools, and most people, if they're not doing the big, alcohol, drugs, or whatever else there is, they're eating. Like I said, look around you. I said, turn around and have a look at what people are eating, and when you look at what people are eating, like every day they're eating this food that's actually, in most cases, because I think stress and mental health is a really big thing. and people don't realize how much they're using food to cope or to feel better or to numb themselves to feeling. I think it's just as important as all the other big, health or life stresses that we're not talking about, that we probably should be a lot more talking about how this, or what this food is doing to us and how it's actually being used. Because I think society actually has a stress problem, or everyone I speak to is just living life, revved out. There's a lot going on in life, very fast paced now. There's a lot to be worried about, and if we're not doing things to, be grounded and centered and living in the moment, then we're going to be looking for things to help us cope instead of maybe doing the daily practices and eating and fueling ourselves right to manage it, and food is just this, most people just don't consider it as something they're using to cope, and they are. It's an easy it's the easy option, and I think there definitely needs to be more conversation about it, because otherwise they'll get into this, like we said, into their 60s and 70s, and they'll, I had a beautiful man last night, I think he's in his late 60s, tell a story about why he chose literally overnight to go carnivore, because he just didn't want to live anymore because of how he felt, his physical body. He just had no purpose. And now the stories were just so incredibly powerful, that you just can't ignore that what this is doing for us is life-changing. So, yeah, like you're doing here with this podcast, and I do my events, and, it's about getting people aware of what they have access to and helping them to do it as well.
Yeah, no, it goes far beyond just the food you put in your mouth, for sure. I mean, I feel like it's a stepping stone. Like, if for me, when I'm going through a lot of stressors, or, life's in disarray, like if my training and my nutrition are on point, then I've got a foothold that I can use to kind of get back to solid footing. And like, I feel like that's what it is for people. Like, that's one thing that they can control completely. They can take full ownership of what they put in their mouth. And if they get that dialed in, no matter how much other chaos they've got going on, they've got something that they can use to climb out of whatever hell they find themselves in.
Yeah.
And I think leveraging it for that is a positive, for sure. And it just gives people hope. It gives people momentum to keep making progress and positive change in other areas of their life. When I look at what I've learned from nutrition, like, it's bled into my business life, my parenting life, my relationship with my wife. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
And I feel you got to take this holistic approach to it. And people that want to segment it out and say, okay, it's not segmented, like, it's not separate. We're all one. Our brain and our body are one being. Like, it all goes into the consideration here.
Yeah, we just have to take really good care of it. And I really encourage people to take good care of their body and then tune into it and thank it. And, every day I thank my body for, we're like a team. It's like we're working together here. Why would I feed my body? We wouldn't put the wrong fuel in our car. The car wouldn't drive. Well, it may for a little while. Then it'll probably blow up the engine, if you put the wrong fuel in your car. So why would we, as human beings who know better, or should know better, be putting the wrong fuel into our bodies that, transports us through our life? It's just crazy to think. So I encourage, and I said this last night at my event, I just said, it can feel overwhelming, because we screened Animal, and it's got a lot of great information in that film. But it can be overwhelming for someone who's just getting started. So, just tomorrow, one change tomorrow, another change the next day. Give yourself a week of consistency. This is how we create consistent change. Don't jump right in if it feels daunting or too hard, because then you'll just not do it. or you binge and restrict. We don't want that either.
Yeah. Progress over perfection for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Sorry?
Was it good? I haven't seen Animal yet. Was it good?
Yes, great. Eye-opening. Obviously, a lot that that we already know, but you're always learning. Like, even for someone like me, like, I'm always learning something new in everything that I watch or listen to or experience. A lot of our friends are in that film, so it was really nice. You know, obviously I'd come all the way to the States and I'd met a lot of these people, but being back here in Australia and watching the film, I felt very grateful to know a lot of the people in the film personally. You would too. Yes, so very eye-opening and very helpful for people who need a bit of a kick up the butt, as they would say here in Australia, to get moving and make changes where necessary. Most people know they have to make change. I'm sure you've seen it many times, all the time. People know they have to make change. They're just not doing it. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I feel like the medium of a documentary really resonates with people, especially people that are like on the fence. Like they'll be just binging on Netflix like they often do, but then they'll see that. And then maybe that's kind of like that kick up the butt that you're talking about that gets them moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that's like documentaries just have a really profound impact on people. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it for sure.
Yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it. Aren't you having a baby soon?
Yeah, any day now. I mean, literally any moment.
You should probably, I was going to say, you have a lot of time at home, but no, you should probably watch it now before you get preoccupied.
Yeah, it'll be chaos for sure, but it'll be good. I've got my calendar more or less blocked out for that when the baby comes, so we'll try and be at the house a little bit more and help Crystal where possible. But yeah, it'll be good.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, awesome.
Yes, indeed. Well, real quick before we go here, what's got you excited about the future here? Like it's in Australia specifically, but you're going to be coming back to the States. Like what's got you fired up for the horizon?
What I really love about the keto carnivore movement right now is that it was for a little while, even not that long ago, this like undercurrent. We knew it was there. There were a few on it, and I was just aware of it then. But what I love now is like so much coming to the surface, and it's technology, love it or hate it, is really helping us to share stories. And I think what's most important is the sharing of stories and experiences that really helps drive change. Because when we book a hotel or we go to a restaurant or we buy anything, what do? We look at the reviews. I always want to hear other people's experiences. And so, social media is really great for this in the carnivore keto space because people are sharing their experiences, sharing their stories more than I've ever seen before. And because of that, others are saying, or they can relate to their story, or they're seeing and feeling themselves in that person's story in their words and experiences and their photos. And so I just like the more and more that gets shared, the more people are going to find out. They're hopefully going to, there's so much information out there for them to hopefully make some change. So I think the future is really positive in the sense that where the uncovering of or the sharing of this information is going to be more than we've ever seen before, which in turn should help more people. For sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of science coming out right now, and the science is all positive, the vast majority of it, and that's all great. But I feel like what really makes a difference is people being able to relate to someone they know or information they've witnessed or felt themselves. And I feel like the stories, the anecdotal evidence, the relationships is where it all stems from. So yeah, the more that comes to the surface, the bigger impact that's going to be made for sure.
I agree. I'm not really into the science so much. Like I'll kind of phase out myself. I'm not really able to kind of keep up with the science because that's just not how I think. But I would much prefer, like I used to, listen to stories and hear other people's experiences. And then I always say myself, and I say to others, try it, have an experience, observe the feedback. That'll be the way you look, the way you feel, and how you're functioning. and then make your decision about whether you go forward or not. And I do this. I've always done the same thing. Let me try it for myself and see how I feel. And then I'll keep fine tuning, and then I'll keep learning and fine tuning, and I think that's why everybody needs to do, for sure. But yeah, I'm excited. I feel like, especially in Australia, with the events I'm holding, we're getting more people together, sharing this information, and bringing the community together. The people in the keto carnivore community are so amazing. Their energy is high, humble, big-hearted, just want to help people and love to share their experiences with others. So you definitely feel the vibe when you get into a room with these types of people.
Yeah. The community is really impressive. Like I've been, I don't know, just welcome with open arms since day one. And there's a couple bad apples, but for the most part, like everybody is here for the right reasons.
Yeah.
They want to be here to help people, and it's just overwhelmingly positive. So anytime people can interact, I mean, I think what you're doing with the communities there in Australia is awesome. I can't wait to have you back here stateside for the next conference. So,
that's so exciting.
getting together is where it's at. So keep doing what you're doing for sure. Keep changing lives, Melissa.
Thank you. And you too. And by the way, we need to get some keto bricks over here.
Yeah, let's put our heads together. We'll make it happen for sure.
Make it happen, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. That's awesome.
My pleasure. Where do people go to find out more about you and follow along?
I mostly live on Instagram, so I'm at Melissa, melissabee.au. So melissab.au.
Awesome. I will link out, make it easy for people to find you. If there's everything I can do for you, Melissa, you just let me know.
Thank you. I definitely will. I may do another comp prep at some point, so I'll be in touch.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help. So having more competitors do it from a ketogenic standpoint, carnivore standpoint, that's something I'm super passionate about because, and you probably saw this firsthand when you did your first show, but like eating disorders and just negative relationships with food and just doing things in a very unhealthy manner run rampant in that sport. And it gets kicked under the rug because everybody looks great. But it's like, there's way more to this than just simply looking great for a moment on stage. And I feel like if we have more competitors living this lifestyle, that'll have a massive ripple effect. Yeah, absolutely. And that is one of the main reasons why I want to go again, because I would love to do it full carnivore. So for the whole prep, because I know it's definitely possible, and I'd love to be in the over 40s category or whatever it is. I would love to be an advocate for that. Yeah. Well, you should do open category still too, because you kill the competition there as well. Yeah, true. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that for sure, Melissa. But in the meantime, you keep doing what you're doing, keep changing lives for sure. Thank you. And you too. I appreciate you having me on.